Before we begin, I just want to say that although I am covering an article that is in favor of Christianity, and although I am an atheist, this commentary is not anti-all Christians, it's merely against the article I'm covering. Ayaan Hirsi Ali is a famous Muslim-turned-atheist who has participated in several, I'd argue, very important social causes over the course of her life. Recently, she announced her conversion to Christianity through an article on the website Unheard. And unsurprisingly, given I felt the need to commentate on it, I have some issues. Chief among them is what this article represents. You see, Ali doesn't actually defend the metaphysical claims made by Christianity, but instead makes the argument that atheism is simply not equipped to deal with the current challenges the West faces. Even the byline of the article is, "Atheism can't equip us for civilizational war." However, even if I agreed with this premise, I don't, but will say I do just for the sake of argument, that doesn't actually answer the main reason I and many others believe you should be an atheist, because we view it as an accurate description of the universe. Ali expands on this in the article, saying the following. Part of the answer is global. Western civilization is under threat from three different but related forces. The resurgence of great power authoritarianism and expansionism in the forms of the Chinese Communist Party and Vladimir Putin's Russia, the rise of global Islamism, which threatens to mobilize a vast population against the West, and the viral spread of woke ideology, which is eating into the moral fiber of the next generation. So atheism cannot equip us for a civilizational war such as one against the officially atheist Chinese Communist Party. If there was really anything to what Ali was saying, why would we even be able to be in a civilizational war with the Chinese Communist Party? Wouldn't their atheism inherently make them unequipped to fight such a war? In the same regard, I have no idea why opposition to Russia is a reason to convert to Christianity, given Putin is well known for using Christian messaging in his rhetoric. Global Islamism is not a particularly large threat to those in the West and hasn't been for the past half-decade or so. And even if I bought the idea that woke ideology was some massive threat to Western civilization, again, I don't, that still wouldn't mean we should all convert to Christianity unless you could prove Christianity was a safeguard from it, which you can't because that's not the case. I assume by woke ideology you just mean support for progressive causes, but there are progressive Christians. You are aware of that, right? 20% of Americans identify as religious progressives after all. And there are even more progressive Christians than there are conservative Christians. We endeavor to fend off these threats with modern, secular tools. Military, economic, diplomatic, and technological efforts to defeat, bribe, persuade, appease, or surveil. And yet, with every round of conflict, we find ourselves losing ground. We are either running out of money with our national debt in the tens of trillions of dollars, or we are losing our lead in the technological race with China. But we can't fight off these formidable forces unless we can answer the question, what is it that unites us? The response that God is dead seems insufficient. So too does the attempt to find solace in the rules-based liberal international order. The only credible answer, I believe, lies in our desire to uphold the legacy of the Judeo-Christian tradition. I'm sorry, but how is God is dead not a good rallying cry against the theocratic? For that matter, how is rules-based international order not a solid rallying cry against those who wish to engage in imperialism and wars of aggression against other nations? Furthermore, why are those the only two other rallying cries that are possible outside of conversion to Christianity? You arbitrarily determined we were down to only 3 possible options, and then determined only one of these 3 was sufficient without any real explanation. Later on in this article, she writes the following about how widespread atheism has affected civilization. Russell and other activist atheists believed that with the rejection of God, we would enter an age of reason and intelligent humanism. But the God hole, the void left by the retreat of the church, has merely been filled by a jumble of irrational quasi-religious dogma. The result is a world where modern cults prey on the dislocated masses, offering them spurious reasons for being and action, mostly by engaging in virtue signaling theater on behalf of a victimized minority or our supposedly doomed planet. The line often attributed to G.K. Chesterton has turned into prophecy. When men choose not to believe in God, they do not thereafter believe in nothing. They then become capable of believing in anything. So, allow me to get this straight. One of the issues our society has today is quasi-religious dogma, and therefore we should all join in actual religion? What kind of sense does that make? The solution isn't to retreat back to where we were, it's to use the same processes that drove people to atheism on these new dogmatic ideas. What you're basically saying amounts to atheism doesn't remove 100% of irrationality from existence. Therefore, there's no point in being an atheist? Well, yeah, obviously atheists can believe irrational things, just as anyone can. And as more and more people become atheists, of course there are going to be some of them who hold on to rather fringe ideas that also fail to meet the standards of rationality. But that's not an argument against being an atheist by any stretch of the imagination. I also want a clearer definition of atheist activist because, again, I've been an atheist my entire life and have been rather vocal about that. And I, for one, have never once argued that the removal of religion would lead to some enlightened golden age. The reason I make the case for atheism is because I view it as correct. In this nihilistic vacuum, the challenge before us becomes civilizational. We can't withstand China, Russia, and Iran if we can't explain to our population why it matters that we do. We can't fight woke ideology if we can't defend the civilization that it is determined to destroy. And we can't counter Islamism with purely secular tools. To win the hearts and minds of Muslims here in the West, we have to offer them something more than videos on TikTok. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing at all impressive about a social media platform where you can freely express yourself to potentially millions, if not billions of people. Any culture could come up with that. Also, again, you can argue against the expanding powers of China, Russia, and Iran, even though it's not attempting to expand like China and Russia are, but details, based on the fact they're authoritarian powers. Why is that not a compelling reason? You've never explained that. And by the way, if I buy into how you explain woke ideology, and again, I cannot stress this enough, I don't, wouldn't fighting against it inherently involve attempting to defend the civilization that it is determined to destroy, given you are defending it by fighting those attempting to destroy it? And I know I already mentioned this, but I feel the need to repeat it. Nowhere in this article does Ali make the case that the metaphysical claims of Christianity are true. She talks about how we need to unite around something, and that might as well be Christianity. However, what is the point of unifying around an idea that cannot be proven correct even by one of its adherents, apparently? Of course, that's not her only point. She also talks about how atheism offers no meaning. Yet I would not be truthful if I attributed my embrace of Christianity solely to the realization that atheism is too weak and divisive a doctrine to fortify us against our menacing foes. I have also turned to Christianity because I ultimately found life without any spiritual solace unendurable, indeed very nearly self-destructive. Atheism failed to answer a simple question: what is the meaning and purpose of life? Well, at that point, you're just getting onto atheism for failing to answer a question it never even attempted to. Atheism is not about finding the meaning of life, it's simply about determining there is no theistic deity behind the universe. Although this answer is not universal, in my mind, our purpose of life is something we are to determine individually. Before I go, there are 2 more paragraphs I want to address from this article. To me, this freedom of conscience and speech is perhaps the greatest benefit of Western civilization. It does not come naturally to man. It is the product of centuries of debate within Jewish and Christian communities. It was these debates that advanced science and reason, diminished cruelty, suppressed superstitions, and built institutions to order and protect life, while guaranteeing freedom to as many people as possible. Unlike Islam, Christianity outgrew its dogmatic stage. It became increasingly clear that Christ's teachings implied not only a circumscribed role for religion as something separate from politics, it also implied compassion for the sinner and humility for the believer. But Christianity is by definition dogmatic, given dogma is defined as an official system of principles or tenets concerning faith, morals, behavior, etc. as of a church, or a specific tenet or doctrine authoritatively laid down as by a church. As for the rest, all I really have to say is, do you have any examples or evidence to back up your claim? Because otherwise, it feels like you're just ascribing these things to Christianity without any real rhyme or reason. The lesson I learned from my years with the Muslim Brotherhood was the power of a unifying story, embedded in the foundational text of Islam to attract, engage, and mobilize the Muslim masses. Unless we offer something as meaningful, I fear the erosion of our civilization will continue. And fortunately, there is no need to look for some new age concoction of medication and mindfulness. Christianity has it all. Because when I think of a unifying force, the first thing that comes to mind is a religion with over 45,000 different denominations globally. Fuck, one of the longest and most brutal wars in human history was the 30 Years' War, which was fought between Catholics and Protestants. Specifically, which one of the 2 groups would govern Europe. Good night and good luck.